A lot of people who follow my channel are aware that I will quite often sell a gun to buy a gun. Meaning I will take something from my collection. I'm kind of an old guy. I've got a pretty extensive collection. I'll find something I just don't like anymore, or never liked as much as I thought it would, or just don't shoot it anymore for one reason or another and have no attachment to. I'll take it, sell it to buy something new that I might like better or might get more use out of. Now, since people know I do this quite often, they're like, how do you go about selling your firearms? How do you find buyers? And how do you protect yourself from liability? A lot of people are really afraid to sell a firearm to an individual because they're afraid, oh my God, they're going to go out and do something horrible with it, and then the police are going to come after me. And they're going to hold me liable for selling it to a crazy person. So I wanted to talk today about the different ways you can go about selling your guns, the pros and cons to the different ways you can sell your guns, and how to protect yourself from liability. Now, the first way you can sell your guns with zero liability is to an FFL. You can actually take it to an FFL and trade it in towards a new gun. Most dealers buy, sell, trade, so you can actually take your old gun in. They will give you a credit towards the new gun. That's the easiest and quickest way to do it. You don't have to try to find a buyer. You don't have to place it on an ad somewhere. It's just the easiest way. And plus, zero liability because this person you're giving the gun to is a licensed FFL, so you have no liability. Those are the pros. It's easy, it's quick, you don't have to do a lot of work, and there's no liability. Now, the cons are you're not going to get much for your gun. That's really the only con. If you're trading your gun in, you'll get more for it. I would never recommend just selling outright to a dealer unless you have no other choice. But if you're trading it in, it's sometimes worth it to just not go through the hassle of selling the gun, but you are going to lose some money. If your gun has, let's say, a market value of $1,000, and I'm not saying what you paid for it. If you paid $1,300 for it, let's say you paid $1,300, it now has a market value in the condition your gun is in as a used gun of $1,000. You take it to trade it in at a good dealership, you're only going to get about 70% of the value, meaning you're only going to get about $700 for that gun that you could have maybe gotten $1,000 from if you'd have sold it privately. Because that dealer has overhead. He might have to sit on that gun for a while. So he's going to charge you part of that overhead, meaning you're going to lose percentage of that gun, percentage of the value of that gun. So you're going to get about 70%. So that's the negative. If every dollar matters, then you don't want to trade your gun into a dealer. You definitely don't want to sell your gun to a dealer because you will not get top dollar for your gun, period. So that's only a way to go about it if what matters to you is that it's easy, it's quick, and you don't have liability. So if you don't want to do that, well, then you're going to have to sell to an individual. And the best way to sell to individuals is through the internet, of course. There's no place to really just go put up, flyers or anything on a telephone pole. I don't think I'd be doing that. Probably not a good idea. But what you can do, put ads on the internet, like Gunbroker. Now, I personally don't recommend Gunbroker. Had too many bad experiences with them. I think their fees are exorbitant, so really don't care for it. Plus, nowadays, it's just a place for people to dump lemon guns, dealers dumping old inventory, scammers trying to get top dollar for stuff. I've just never cared for Gunbroker or what it actually has become. It was okay at first, but now don't like it. In fact, they've started paying, internet shills to try to promote them because they know people are starting to have problems with them. So I don't recommend Gunbroker. An option for Gunbroker other than Gunbroker, I would put forward is Armslist. Armslist is a place where you go list your gun. It's more like kind of a flea market for guns that's nationwide. It's like a internet bulletin board, nationwide internet bulletin board for firearms for sale. You can go on there, buy, sell, whatever. You can either just search for a particular gun anywhere in the country if you're willing to do shipping, or you can search for a buyer anywhere in the country if you're willing to do shipping, or you can just list your gun locally, or you can even search locally, see what's for sale locally. So Armslist does have a local contingency to it, or a local aspect to it that you can use if you don't want to deal with shipping. Shipping gets a little touchy to me, so I don't like to ship. For one, it's expensive, it's time consuming, so I don't like to do it. I like to sell local. And because I like to sell local, I usually use my local forum. There are local gun forums that you can get on usually in your area. Like in Portland, there's northwestfirearms.com. I use them a lot. I post there a lot. There's also waguns.org. A lot of people post there. These are actually just community bulletin boards, community forums where people get on and talk about guns, talk about politics. It's just an old way of communicating. Used to be very popular before YouTube. Still popular, but used to be more popular before YouTube. But most of these forums have a classified section where you go in and just list guns you want to sell locally. And usually you find a local buyer because, someone from Indiana isn't usually in the classified section of your Washington forum. So that's usually just trying to sell your guns locally. So that's the way I almost always do it, through my local forums like Northwest Firearms or Waguns. That's how I do it. That's how I would recommend most people do it if you want to get top dollar for your gun. Now, the bad thing is about listing is you have to wait to find a buyer. And sometimes, even if your gun is worth $1,000, you're only going to get like $800 for it because people are looking for bargains. So you might have wanted to go ahead and just trade it into the dealer and not have to go through all the crap. That's another plus for the dealer right there. You don't have to go through that crap. But if you do decide you're going to sell to an individual through any type of forum, the way you protect yourself from liability is pretty simple. The way I always did it is if I didn't know you personally, if you're someone I know, like, yeah, we go to the PTA together, or, I've hung out with this guy multiple times. I know him. I know he's a good citizen. I know he's got a carry permit. I know he's not a felon. I'll sell to you privately. Or at least I would back when we could. We can't do that now. I'll talk about that in a few more minutes. If I didn't know you, even back when we could do private transfers without a background check, I would say, do you have a concealed carry license? If they did, I would say, are you okay with me taking a copy of it, writing down the gun, writing down the serial number, and both of us signing that it transferred? If they were, I was okay with selling that person a gun. They had a carry license. That's the state saying, hey, this is not a bad guy. So that covered me from liability. So if they ever came back to me and said, hey, you sold this gun to this guy, he did this bad thing with it, I'd be like, oh, right here's a notification from the state that he wasn't a bad guy, so I had no reason to believe he'd do anything bad. So that was protection. Now, a lot of people don't want to do that. They don't want a paper trail. If they're buying privately, they don't want a paper trail. And to those people, I would say, well, it was nice almost doing business with you, but I personally am not going to sell to you without some verification of who you are and that you're a good guy. Now, a lot of people are going to say, that's awful hypocritical of you because you don't believe in background checks, etc. Well, I don't. I don't believe in background checks through the government. I don't think the government has any right to interfere in private sales between two people of an item that they are constitutionally mandated the right to carry. So, don't believe the government has a role in that. However, individuals have whatever rights they want to protect themselves from liability. That guy has a right to possess a firearm, but he doesn't have a right to possess my firearm or buy a firearm from me. So I have every right to protect my own personal liability, my own personal risk. I have the right to limit that. So if they didn't want to do that, I would just say, sorry. Now, in my state now, we have to have background checks, so we have to go to an FFL, and the FFL actually does the transfer from me to him with a background check. Now, even before that was mandated, I would often do it. If I didn't know someone and they didn't have a carry permit, or they just didn't want it to give it to me, I would say, okay, are you okay with going to a dealer and having them transfer it to you? And if they were, that's what I would do. Now, if you want to limit your liability as much as possible, that's the way you should always do it. Find a local buyer. Go to a local gun shop, say, hey, we want to pay whatever your transfer fee is, and I just want you to transfer it from me to him. That protects you from liability. You've sold your gun, you get your money directly from that guy, and then either you or he pays the dealer for the background check. I usually paid it myself because it was to protect me, not the buyer. But it does protect the buyer in a way, too. That way they know the gun's not stolen, etc. So you can decide who pays it, or you can split it or whatever, but I usually paid it. It was usually only like $25. So I did that to protect myself from liability. Now, another problem you get into with liability if you're selling private guns is, say you're selling to someone over the internet who doesn't live in your state. Well, if they don't live in your state, you have to send it to an FFL. So no liability there involved whatsoever. Now, shipping is a hassle, it's expensive, etc. But if you're willing to do it and they're willing to pay for it, you can do it. Send it to an FFL. That FFL receives it. It's no longer your concern. You have no liability for that after it goes through the hands of an FFL. Now, in some instances, you could mail a gun directly to someone in your own state. There are some states that allow that. Our state used to allow that. I would never do that. period. Simply because there's no way I would ever put myself in a situation to have state police or the FBI knocking on my door with my old gun in a baggie saying, hey, did you sell this to this person? And me have to say, yeah, but I never even met him. I don't know anything about him, blah, blah, blah. Because that makes me look pretty bad. That I didn't even take the precaution of making sure that I wasn't giving my gun to a bad person. Because I do have some personal responsibility. And therefore I have personal liability. So I would never ship a gun to anyone other than an FFL and let the person buying it there pick it up there. Because in-state, out-of-state, wherever, if I don't know you or I haven't met you, you're definitely not getting a gun from me. You're getting it from an FFL that I turned the gun over to. If you just take some steps, like I say, make sure you either know the person, they have a carry permit, or they're willing to go and do a transfer at an FFL, you'll have very little liability, if any at all. Transferring it through your dealer, you'll have no liability. So liability is something to easily protect yourself from, and it's not hypocritical to do it. There's a big difference in believing that the government should have a right to step into your business and believing that you have a right to decide how you do your business. And if you decide you want a background check, you have every right to decide that, or just say, I'm not selling to anyone then. So just protect yourself. And as far as, like I said, selling it, dealer, quick and easy, private individual, just take some steps to protect yourself. And it's really not a difficult process. I do it all the time. According to a lot of my friends and people on the internet, and sometimes my children, I'm halfway retarded. So if I can manage to do it, you can do it. Like I said, just decide how you want to sell it, decide how you want to protect yourself, take some proper steps, and selling a gun to another individual is not really a big deal. I will quite often sell a gun to buy a gun. I mean, what? Why did I... Let's just pause and stare at the camera. Fuck. I'm confusing myself. I don't know what I'm talking about. They're going to actually charge you. God damn, my nose is so fucking itchy. You can mail a gun. This is all over the fucking place. Something new that I might like better or get more use out of. And because I haven't had enough caffeine today. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. If I can't follow it, how am I supposed to expect you to follow it? To buy something new that I like more or may like more or fuck! So let's go over the two different ways you can sell your... What the fuck am I talking about? 2, 1, 1, 2, 2. Oops.
Go ahead. It's the lady at 46 South Road. 46 South Road.
Station 1 call, retone that please. 10-4. Got the 4 to go to that location. Also. 1-9, is that correct?